Imagine for a moment that right in the middle of the tiredness, you are carrying right within every cell that seems silent in your body. There is a gentle light still softly shining. I have met many people who came to me with fear, with pressure, with the feeling that life had taken something precious from them. But every time I simply invited them to pause for a moment and remember that there is a strength breathing with them, very near, so near that it can never be separated. Not on stone altars, not in rigid teachings, but in the very place where you are sitting in the body you are carrying, there is a presence that nothing can replace. I do not write these words to convince you with knowledge. I am only handing you a key. It does not open mysterious secrets. It opens the door for you to step into the deepest part of yourself, where you remain whole even when life has touched you, many times with sorrow and challenge. When you hold this key, you are stepping into a field of light that is not dependent on time, not dependent on circumstances, and not dependent on passing emotions. Throughout my life, I have witnessed something that never changes. Peace is not a reward. It is the natural state of the soul when it remembers its origin. Health, meaning, direction, faith, hope, all begin in the moment we realize that God has never been absent from even a single cell within us. The body does not need miracles to function, it only needs to be placed under the guidance of right thought, of gentle yet steady belief. I know you have walked through many storms. I know there are days when you feel you are only trying to survive. But today, in this very moment, you are invited to step across a bridge not made of stone or wood, but of light, the light of the awareness that you are not alone. There is a sacred order supporting you, a truth that does not belong to the past or the future, but belongs to this present moment. The words you are about to hear are not only to be read, they are to be lived. They do not come to decorate your mind, they come to transform it. Because the one calling you is not me, it is the deep voice within you, the voice you have heard since childhood, but at times covered by the dust of worries. Let this opening become a new breath for you. Let it place a gentle hand on your shoulder and tell you that it is time to return. Peace is waiting for you. Healing is opening its door. Meaning is appearing. And you, the one who feels exhausted, still carry within you a strength strong enough to begin again, strong enough to heal, strong enough to walk into life with a soul that no longer trembles. THEUMANBEUNDERPRESSUREYESSUREYENLYSEAD. For many years of speaking with people searching for peace, I have noticed one truth returning again and again. Most of us do not collapse because of heavy work, but because of the way we carry that weight in our minds. No one enters life dreaming of running every day, fearing every night, or forcing themselves to live according to someone else's expectations. But somehow, as time moves on, our minds become tightened by the constant demands of modern living. You can work hard, support a family, strive for good things, and then one day find yourself suddenly realizing that you have lived far too long without a moment of true peace. The world today moves at a pace the human heart struggles to follow. It is not only the tasks to be completed, but the thick layers of expectation. You must be strong, you must be capable, you must be calm, you must know every answer. And beneath these layers, something subtle but deeply real happens. You begin to forget who you are. You forget who you are in the eyes of God. You forget that before you became an employee, a parent, a spouse, a bearer of responsibility, you were a soul of unshakable dignity, a soul of divine origin. I want to say this to you slowly and clearly. The pressures you are carrying do not deny your worth, and they do not erase the light within you. They only make you momentarily forget it. Some people come to me in deep exhaustion and say, I no longer recognize myself. But when we begin the inner conversation, when we face the truth that they have never been separated from the presence of God, something strange happens. They begin to breathe again. A new breath, deeper, not of the lungs, but of the soul. As if someone had drawn back the curtain from a window that had been closed for many years. We live in a time when the body constantly reacts to unresolved spiritual signals. Chronic fatigue is the voice of an overloaded mind. Quiet anxiety is the echo of unnamed fears. Declining health is often not the failure of the body, but the cry of the soul, saying, "Stop, look within. There is something you have forgotten." And when we listen, a new stream of awareness begins to flow. We are not only what we do, we are what God placed within us from the beginning. I never want you to think that your body is your enemy. The body is your most loyal friend, quietly telling you where your mind has gone astray. Every symptom, every heaviness, every sign of imbalance is a small letter sent from the deep regions of your consciousness. Not to frighten you, but to call you home. Not to worry you, but to show you that it is time to restore order. And the order I speak of is not the arrangement of the world. It is not trying to be more perfect, more efficient, never wrong, never disappointing. This order begins with a simple awareness. You are a child of God. A child of peace, not of fear. A child of light, not of darkness. An heir to an inner strength no circumstance can take away. When you begin to see yourself in this light, the things that seemed impossible to change begin to shift. The burden becomes lighter, not because tasks disappear, but because your mind no longer carries them the old way. You no longer live as someone pushed by circumstances, but as someone held by a quiet, yet undeniable strength. Someone once asked me, if everything begins inside, then what about the pain I feel in my body? Is it not real? Yes, it is real. But there is something even more real. No physical pain has the right to rule you when your mind stands under the light of truth. When your thoughts rest on what is right, not on fear, not on dark predictions, not on self-destructive judgments, the body must follow. It cannot do otherwise. The body is only the echo of the mind. And this is why I want you to look at your life with gentleness rather than blame. Every fear you have carried is only a sign that you have forgotten your true place in the hands of God. Every symptom is an invitation to return, not a sentence. Every exhaustion is a reminder that you have carried too many things that were never yours to begin with. You may be living in a crowded city or a quiet home. You may be carrying the weight of a family or walking alone on your life journey. But none of these can take from you the sacred seed placed within you from the beginning. It is still there. It is still shining. It is still waiting to be awakened. And when it awakens, you will realize something greater than all. You do not need to become someone else to find peace. You only need to return to yourself, to your source, to the light that has always lived in every cell, every breath, every moment you exist. Before we move on, I want to ask you as a gentle invitation to your heart. Among all the pressures you are carrying, what feels heaviest right now? And are you willing to set it down just for a moment so you and I can walk the rest of this journey together? Thank you for being here whole and sincere. THEMINDSHAPESTBODYWHAT YUBELIVABE ECOMESW When I began my journey of studying spiritual law, the thing that amazed me most was not new knowledge, but the simplicity and undeniable clarity of one truth. Everything that enters a person's life is the result of the thoughts they keep in their mind. Nothing happens by accident. No condition appears without a spiritual cause behind it. Even the body you carry, every pleasant or heavy sensation, every momentary or lasting pain, is a faithful response to what your mind has been nurturing. Many people think the body is stubborn and follows only biological mechanisms. But if you observe more closely, you will see that the body is more sensitive than we assume. It does not react only to food environment or weather. It reacts to the words you repeat to yourself every day, to the fears you have not released, to the dark predictions you carry in your heart as a habit. The body hears everything you whisper in both your conscious and unconscious mind. Where thought is unstable, the body becomes unsettled. Where thought is covered by darkness, the body grows tired. Where thought brightens, the body becomes calm. I have seen this in many people. Someone lives for years with a slow drip of anxiety, and their body gradually becomes heavy without understanding why. Someone hides an old shame never spoken aloud, and their body reveals it through unexplained pains. Someone lives under the expectations of others for many years, and their body tightens like a string pulled too hard. But the miracle is this: when thought changes direction even slightly, the body responds immediately, like dry ground meeting rain. Imagine you hold a stone and drop it into a still lake. You do not need to control each ripple. They expand on their own according to their nature. Thought is like that stone. When an idea is held long enough, it begins to ripple outward into your lived experience. And the body, like the lake, cannot help but respond. It responds to good and bad, to love and fear, to hope and despair. The strongest thought within you becomes the shape of your life. Many people ask me, if thought is this powerful, does that mean I caused my own difficulties? I always answer gently that there is no blame here. No one chooses fear. No one intentionally plants wrong beliefs within themselves. Most of us are simply repeating unconsciously what we heard, what we were taught, what we witnessed, what was passed down through generations. We believed it was truth, so we lived according to it. But when you realize that a thought can be replaced with a better one, you begin to feel a different kind of power, the power to renew your life from the root. I want you to understand this clearly. A thought does not disappear on its own. It is only replaced. You cannot erase a wrong belief by ignoring it. You must place a right belief in its place. Just as you cannot drive darkness out of a room by shouting at it, you must turn on the light. Light does not fight darkness. It simply appears and darkness dissolves. True thought, bright thought, sacred thought works the same way. When you hold it long enough, it will push out everything that does not belong to truth from your body and your life. Someone once told me that he lived in constant tension to the point his stomach always tightened. But when he began practicing gentle thoughts each morning, just for a few minutes, his body responded so quickly that he himself was surprised. He said, "I do not know why, but it feels as if someone loosened a knot inside me." I smiled and told him this is normal. When the cause changes, the effect must change. It cannot be otherwise. This is the law. Negative thoughts do not make you a bad person. They simply show that you have forgotten your origin. And when you forget, the body tries to remind you through very real signals. Pain in your chest may mean you are holding a long-standing fear. Weight on your shoulders may mean you are carrying responsibilities that are not yours. Deep fatigue may mean you have lived too long under pressure without ever giving yourself rest. None of these are punishments. They are reminders of who you truly are. And who are you? You are a soul made in the image of God. You were created to live in light, not in darkness. You were created to operate in peace, not in fear. You were created with a mind capable of shaping life in the best possible way. When you place your thoughts on what is good, the body cannot resist. It must become good as well. When you place your thoughts on what is harmful, the body cannot resist that either. It must reflect it. This truth does not come to frighten you. It comes to return to you the power you forgot, the power to choose what you keep in your mind. And now I want to ask you one question, a question for you to pause with in honesty. If your body is only reflecting what you believe, then which belief within you is the one most needing healing right now? Thank you for walking with me this far. THREERIVERS. Quiet fears, habitual judgments, old memories that linger in the mind like dust on a window blocking the light from coming in. And so there are three principles I always invite people to practice: denial, affirmation, and blessing. These three principles are like three rivers, quiet yet powerful, able to wash away what is old and open new ground within the inner world. Denial is not rejecting reality, nor is it stubbornness. It is a conscious spiritual act in which you withdraw the power you once gave to something that does not belong to truth. Sometimes we do not realize that we have agreed with fear, agreed with helplessness, agreed with the thought that I cannot change, agreed with the words someone once planted in us long ago. But when you begin to say, I refuse to give power to that, your mind changes its direction. Denial is like lifting a heavy object off your heart so it can breathe again. I once met a woman who lived almost her entire life under the shadow of the words, not enough, not good enough, not beautiful enough, not strong enough. Every time she faced difficulty, her body tightened, her heart contracted as if waiting for judgment. But when we began practicing denial little by little, she withdrew her agreement with that belief. She did not deny the challenges in her life, but she denied the power of the fear ruling her mind. And her body, which was only the loyal echo of thought, began to loosen. Denial is like saying to the mind, this is not the truth about me. And when that sentence is repeated with clarity, the old begins to fall away. If denial prepares the soil, affirmation plants the seeds. You cannot remove an old mental habit without replacing it with a new truth. The mind is never empty. It always operates according to what you place in it. Affirmation is not reciting pretty words. It is declaring a sacred truth you choose to believe again. Not to perform a miracle, but to restore order within. When you say the peace of God adjusts every part of me, you are inviting that energy back to its place. When you say, I am guided by light, not by fear, you are changing direction. Affirmation is the voice of the soul reminding what the mind sometimes forgets. And when you hold an affirmation long enough, your body will begin to follow. Not because you force it, but because it is the natural law. The mind leads and the body follows. Many people think they must fully believe an affirmation before it can work. But I often say you only need to be willing to believe. Full belief will come later. An affirmation is like turning on a light switch in a room. The light does not require your analysis. It only needs you to turn it on. And then there is blessing, the third river, the gentlest yet deepest. If denial removes what is false, and affirmation reinstates what is true, then blessing opens the door for life to flow into everything. When you bless a situation, a person, or a part of your body, you are acknowledging that divine light can move through that place. Blessing does not make you weak. It makes you open. It frees you from the posture of battle, so you can return to your natural state: peace, clarity, and love. There was a man who once told me he had long-lasting chest pain. He tried many methods, but nothing worked. I did not tell him the symptom was not real. I simply invited him to try something different. Instead of fearing it, bless it. See it as a part of you trying to return to order. Place your hand over your chest and whisper, I bless this place with love and light. He did this every night, and not only did the pain lessen, but he himself felt lighter, as if he had made peace with his body after many years of tension. Blessing is the art of living in peace. Not peace because everything is perfect, but peace because you choose to see everything through the eyes of truth, not fear. These three principles, denial, affirmation, blessing, are not theories. They are the natural movements of a healthy mind. If you learn to practice them, they will become the spiritual breath within you, releasing what is false, receiving what is true, and allowing love to flow into all things. And then there is a principle I call the golden key, the golden key. This principle is so simple that many people do not believe it works, but it has never failed. Whenever you face any difficulty, do not think about the difficulty, think about God. No analysis needed, no effort to understand. Just change direction. If you persist, the problem will shift not because you fought it, but because you stopped feeding it with your energy. Now, before we continue, I want to ask you something gentle yet direct. Today, what are you willing to withdraw your power from? And what are you willing to invite back with light and love? If you hold these questions in your heart, the three rivers of healing will begin to flow within you. You. The human mind is like a vast ocean. When a gentle breeze passes over it, the surface stays calm. But when a wind of anxiety sweeps through, waves can rise violently in an instant. And the nervous system, the most delicate instrument in the body, responds immediately to every gust of that wind. I say this not to make you feel powerless, but to help you see that the peace you sometimes think is out of reach is closer to you than ever. Peace is not a reward for the perfect. Peace is the original strength you have carried since the moment you were created. It is there just beneath the restless waves of your mind. I remember once a man came to me in complete exhaustion. He said his nerves could not take anything more. Every sound startled him. Every bad news made him tremble. Every small disappointment felt like he was about to collapse. I looked at him for a long time and said, "Your nerves are not weak. Your thoughts have given power to fear for too long, and now you are only hearing the echo of that. The nervous system is never your enemy. It simply answers what you think, what you believe, and what you repeat each day. When you live in tension, it becomes tense. When you tremble inside, it trembles as well. But when you step into peace, it follows. The nervous system is your most loyal friend, and also the most vulnerable when you forget the truth about yourself. I want you to know that no external force can disturb your nervous system unless you open the door to it from within. No circumstance, no person, no challenge has the right to break your peace unless you give that right away. The door of the nervous system is always on the inside, never on the outside. And the key is there too. When Jesus said, "Peace, be still," he was not only calming a physical storm. He was pointing to the law of the inner world. When thought is placed under the authority of peace, every storm within the body must also become still. I have seen that verse heal the nerves of more people than any medicine. You may think the nervous system is too complex to be that simple. But the truth is always simple. We are the ones who make it complicated. When your mind keeps chasing dark predictions, the nervous system tightens. When you let old sorrows drift back, it knots up. When you hold worries that have not yet happened, it stretches like a string pulled too far. But when you pause even for a moment and say, "I do not give power to fear," in that moment, you begin the healing process. I want you to do something with me now. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine you are holding a very delicate instrument in your hands. You know that even a slight tremble will change its sound. But you do not need to grip it tightly. You only need to soften. You only need to remember the melody that already lives inside you. Your nervous system works the same way. It does not need force. It needs release. A very common mistake people make during stress is trying to fight the feeling with sheer willpower. They tighten their body, resist the headache, brace against the restlessness. But that effort only tightens the nerves further. You cannot heal tension with tension. You can only heal it with peace. And peace is not something you search for outside. It is something you allow to arise from within. Many people ask me how to begin. I usually invite them to practice a simple denial. I do not give power to disordered nerves. I do not give power to fear. This is not meant to deny emotion, but to withdraw the unconscious agreement they once gave it. Then I invite them to affirm. The mind of Christ within me is adjusting, calming, and guiding every nerve in perfect peace. When you say this, you are not asking for a miracle. You are inviting the divine law within you to return to its place. I have seen people who struggled with sleeplessness for years sleep again simply because they stopped fighting themselves. I have seen people with chronic headaches find relief when they loosened their thoughts. I have seen people in panic break into tears just from hearing the words "be still," not out of weakness, but because they had finally touched the peace they had avoided for so long. And now I want to ask you something very real, something you may not have allowed yourself to ask. Are you willing to let peace become your new strength? Are you willing to let yourself live lighter, breathe deeper, and release what no longer belongs to you? If you nod within even just a little, then in this very moment your nervous system has already begun to shift. Peace does not require you to be perfect. It only asks that you open the door. THEACHEARTTHEACENSITIVESSOFBELIEF. There is something I have observed throughout my life, and I believe you have felt it too. The human heart is not only a biological organ. It is like the most delicate compass, always reflecting the direction the inner world is turning toward. When belief is placed in the right place, the heart beats with a rhythm of peace. When the mind drifts into fear, the heart changes its rhythm. It never lies. It only reflects honestly what you are believing. I remember a man who once came to me with a vague anxiety. He said there was no specific problem yet. His heart always felt as if it was waiting for something bad to happen. His heartbeat sometimes skipped, sometimes raced, sometimes tightened as if an invisible hand was gripping it. When I asked what he usually thought about at the start of each day, he answered honestly, "I do not know, maybe I go through it with the feeling that I must protect myself from everything that might happen." I looked at him and replied gently, "Your heart is not weak. Your mind has simply grown too accustomed to believing in danger. For the heart never leads. It only follows. It beats according to the belief the mind gives it. This is true for you, for me, for anyone. When you believe in something long enough, the heart begins to speak the language of that belief. If you believe life is a burden, the heart feels heavy. If you believe you must always stay alert, the heart tightens. If you believe you are alone, the heart contracts. But when you believe you are supported, the heart becomes light. When you believe there is a sacred order caring for you, its rhythm becomes steady again. And when you believe you do not have to hold up the world by yourself, the heart begins to breathe. The heart always responds. It is never silent. Many people think the turbulence in their heart comes from the body, but it is usually only the echo of the mind. You can see this clearly during anxious moments. The mind imagines something terrible, and the heart instantly changes its rhythm even when no danger is present. This proves that the heart reacts to thought before it reacts to circumstance. Instead of fearing this, let it ease you. If the cause is in thought, then you can change it. You do not need to wait for outside events to settle. You do not need someone else to comfort you. You do not need perfect conditions. You only need to adjust where your belief is placed. One of the most powerful denials I invite people to practice is, "I do not give power to anxiety to disturb my heart." This sentence is like pulling the compass back to center. It does not calm the heart instantly, but it stops the stream of thoughts pushing the heart into chaos. And when you deny long enough, like a door slowly closing, peace begins to enter. After denial, you need an affirmation not to convince yourself but to restore the sacred order within you. The perfect love of God harmonizes my heart. Love here is not an emotion, not something you try to create. It is a principle, a real force, a stream that flows wherever it is welcomed. And the heart is where it loves to flow most, for the heart is the center where the human being senses divine presence most clearly. When I invited that man to place his hand on his chest and speak that affirmation, his eyes grew wet. He said, "I have never said anything gentle to my heart," and I knew he was not the only one. We can be kind to others, yet harsh with ourselves. But the heart does not need to be hardened. It needs reassurance. Let me share something very real. Many flutters, tightness, and irregular rhythms do not come from a biological flaw, but from the heart being in a state of not feeling safe. When the heart does not trust in safety, it reacts. But when you nurture in your mind a belief in sacred order, the heart softens. You cannot command the heart with fear, but you can guide it with gentleness. I want to invite you to do this with me right now. Place your hand on your heart. Feel its beat, not as a meaningless sound, but as a reminder that life is still with you. Then whisper softly, "I release every unnecessary alarm. My heart is adjusted by peace." You do not need to fully believe it right now. Let the sentence touch the doorway of your mind. The heart will take care of the rest. There are people I have met who lived for years with heaviness in their chest, but only when they learned to bless their heart to see it as a child needing reassurance rather than a problem to fix did true change begin. They started to see the heart as the place where the soul tries to speak, not as the container of fear. The heart is the friend who asks you each day, "What are you believing today?" And it answers that question through every beat. So before you leave this part, I want to ask you something from heart to heart. If your heart is only reflecting your deepest belief, then deep inside, what are you choosing to believe? Fear or the sacred support that has never left you? Let this question stay with you. It will do its work. BREATHEDOORWYTOINNERFREEDOM. There is one expression that is simple yet absolutely honest. Your breath has never learned to lie. It tells you where your mind is, what your heart is holding, and how much inner freedom remains within you. Every breath you draw in carries a small piece of the history of your mind, and every breath you release carries a message that something is ready to be let go. I have met countless people who believed their problem was in their lungs, in their workload, or in their living conditions. But when we sat together saying little, only observing the breath, they realized that what was suffocating them was not their chest, but unresolved emotions, memories. They had held too long, fears they did not want to face. The body simply does what it knows to do. It reacts to the mind. Think back to a time you were anxious. Your breath instantly became shallow, fast, and broken. Not because your lungs were weak, but because your mind contracted. Then remember a moment you felt truly free, maybe during a quiet afternoon, or when you gazed at the vast sky. In that moment, your breath was deeper, softer, more open. You were not trying. You were only breathing the way the body breathes when the mind is released. Breath is the most delicate mirror of the soul, and because of that, it is one of the shortest paths back to peace. You cannot force yourself to stop worrying, but you can pause long enough to breathe again. You cannot order emotions to disappear, but you can open a window for light to enter. Breath is that window. When Scripture tells us that God breathed into the nostrils of man, and he became a living soul, it is not only a story about human origins. It is a sign that every breath you receive is not only air, but life, wisdom, guidance. Breath is the reminder that you have never been cut off from your source. Many people do not realize that shallow breathing often comes from unprocessed emotion. Old resentment, unresolved arguments, losses never spoken aloud, all of these take up space in the chest. When you carry them, you no longer have room for life. The chest becomes a room crowded with old objects. Breath feels cramped because it cannot find its way. I once guided a woman who struggled with long-lasting shortness of breath. She believed she had a physical illness. But as we talked, she broke down and shared a wound from years before, something she had always pretended she had overcome. When the first tear fell, her breath changed. It became deeper, softer, like the breath of someone who had just been unchained. No one healed her. She simply released what she had been holding too long. Breath is the place where you discover what you are holding and what you are ready to release. I want you to understand something important. Oppression in breath always begins with oppression in thought. Resentment not released can make your chest feel like stone. A fear not named can disturb your breath. A habit of judgment can harden every inhale. But because of this, breath is also where you can recover fastest. The moment you change your perspective, your breath changes with it. A simple denial for the breath is this: I do not give power to fear to suffocate my soul. And then a gentle affirmation. The breath of life fills me with purity and freedom. You do not need to say it loudly. You do not need to repeat it many times. You only need to say it with honesty. That honesty is the doorway for the new to enter. Some people think they must meditate for a long time or practice complex breathing methods. But the truth is, 3 conscious breaths can shift the state of your nervous system. When you breathe deeply, not with effort, but with release, you are sending a message to your whole body that order has returned, that you have stopped running, that you are ready to step into peace. I often tell people who are tense, do not try to control your breath. Simply observe it. When you observe, you return to yourself. And when you return to yourself, you return to God. Observing the breath is like watching a child frightened by the dark. You do not scold the child. You do not say, "Do not be afraid." You simply stay there, gentle and present, until the child realizes it is not alone. Your breath needs that same kindness, not force. Here's a tender truth I want you to carry. You cannot breathe deeply while you are harsh with yourself. But the moment you begin to treat yourself with gentleness, your breath begins to open. And now I want you to pause for a moment. Place one hand on your chest. Do nothing. Just feel the breath coming in and going out. Then ask yourself one question, a question that does not need words, only sensing. What is my breath trying to tell me about myself today? What is it asking me to release, and what is it inviting me to receive? Thank you for allowing your breath to guide the way. DIGESTIONWHENTHEMINDISATPESATEBOD YKODWSHOWTORE VIECIVE. Among all the systems of the body, perhaps none reacts to mood and thought as quickly as the digestive system. Every meal that enters the body carries not only flavor and nourishment, but also the atmosphere of your mind at that moment. A meal taken in peace becomes gentle energy. A meal taken in hurry, anxiety, or resentment becomes a burden, no matter how nutritious it is. I have seen many people blame their stomach for being weak or their gut for being sensitive, but few realize that it is their mind, not food, that the body reacts to most strongly. A meal eaten in rush is a meal the body cannot receive. A meal eaten during conflict is a meal the body cannot digest. A meal eaten in quiet tension becomes heavy for the entire system. Digestion, more than any other function, reflects your inner capacity to receive life. If your mind is racing, your body cannot absorb. If your mind is resisting, your body cannot relax. If your mind is holding something too tightly, an old sadness, a painful thought, a hidden resentment. Your body will also hold something and refuse to let go. There was once someone who told me she had chronic bloating. When we talked, I asked her, "What in your life are you unwilling to receive?" She fell silent for a long time, then cried as she realized she had been forcing herself to swallow pressures that did not belong to her, accepting demands that made her soul feel crowded. The digestive system simply reflected that inability to receive. Another person struggled with years of constipation, but when I asked what he was holding on to, what he was afraid to release, what he had not forgiven, he discovered the body was only copying the mind, clinging to what no longer served him. Digestion is not only about food, it is a living test of how you allow life to move through you. That is why I often remind people of this. Peace is the strongest digestive energy. Not ginger, not supplements, not good food, but an inner state not driven by fear. Peace creates space for the body to do its work naturally. The digestive system does not need you to control it. It only needs you not to interrupt its rhythm with hurry, judgment, and tension. I want you to understand something very important. Digestion is release, not effort. The body digests best when it feels safe, when the breath is slow, when the mind stops struggling, when life returns to softness. Not when you force it or when you eat in fear of not being well. One thing I always invite people with digestive issues to practice before a meal is a denial. I refuse to let restlessness rule my body. When you say this, you withdraw the negative energy that has flowed from mind to body. Then affirm, "The peace of God digests everything in me in perfect order." When you say this, you are not only inviting peace into the stomach, but into your entire living system. Some people hear this and say, "Mr. Fox, why is it so simple?" But simplicity is the true power. The body follows natural order, not complicated order. When the mind aligns with the simplicity of God, the body follows instantly. I always encourage people to eat slowly, not as a technique, but to let the soul participate in the meal. One peaceful bite heals more than 10 tense bites. One deep breath before eating can change the entire process. Even a few seconds of silence before a meal is an acknowledgement that you are receiving a gift from heaven, not stuffing into yourself the chaotic energy of life. Remember this: you do not eat only with your mouth. You eat with your mind. If your mind is full of doubt, the body cannot digest. If your mind is full of tension, the body cannot absorb. If your mind is full of unfinished conversations, the body reflects that conflict. And when symptoms appear, do not treat them as enemies. See them as a call, something inside asking to be softened. The body never works against you. It only wants you to return to yourself. Every digestive discomfort invites you to learn something deep. What are you holding too tightly? What are you swallowing that is not yours? What pace are you living that your body cannot follow? Many people ask me, what should I do to digest better? And I say this: slow your breath. Eat with gratitude. Release thoughts that do not nourish you. Forgive the day before you eat dinner. And a quiet miracle happens. When the mind releases, the body begins to work fully again. TALIVEU DEEALS. No emotion kept in silence ever disappears. It simply finds a place to hide. And one of the places the body most often stores what has not been resolved is the liver. If the heart reflects where you place your belief, the liver reflects what you have not forgiven, not released, not spoken aloud. I once met a woman who said she felt a heaviness inside that she could not name. Not sadness, not anger, but something dull and lingering, like the fatigue of the soul. As we talked, she spoke of old disappointments, wounds she had told herself were already over, but had never truly healed. Her liver, in a very honest way, reflected all of this through stagnation, through mild but persistent discomfort, through a feeling of low vitality. The liver is not only the filter of the body. It is the filter of emotional memory. It stores repressed anger. It stores unspoken disappointment. It stores bitterness that the mind tries to ignore. And over time, these become burdens, not only for the spirit, but for the body as well. If you look back over your life, you may realize that on days when your mind was resentful, your liver felt heavy. On days when you were dissatisfied, your body felt dim. It is no coincidence that in many cultures, people use the word bitter to describe painful emotions in the heart. Inner bitterness always seeks expression, and the liver is often the first place it knocks. I want you to understand something important. Bitterness does not make you a bad person. It simply shows that you have loved deeply or been disappointed deeply. Bitterness is the echo of a heart that once hoped for something better. But when it stays too long, it becomes a mist that hides the light within you. That is why the first step to freeing the liver is a simple but powerful denial. I do not give power to bitterness in my life. You are not denying the feeling, you are denying its right to rule you, to direct you, to suffocate your inner freedom. When you speak this denial, you open a door. Bitterness cannot leave as long as you treat it as the master. But when you withdraw its power, it begins to fade like mist under sunlight. After denial, you need an affirmation, something that restores the light bitterness has dimmed. One of the strongest affirmations I have ever taught is this: the joy of God sweetens my blood and brightens my life. This joy is not outer cheerfulness, not forced laughter, not temporary excitement. Divine joy is an underground stream, clear and gentle, able to flow into the deepest places of the soul, touching long wounded parts, softening places that have become hard as stone. I remember a man who carried bitterness for many years because he believed life was unfair. He saw good things happen to others and hardship come to him. But when he learned to bless the people around him, to bless them, instead of comparing, his heart began to change. And he was surprised to find that the symptoms connected to his liver began to ease as well. This is not coincidence. Everything you bless is released. Everything you resent is held in the body. When you bless others, you do not open the door only for them, you open it for yourself. Your body reacts first. The liver, which holds what is heavy, becomes lighter when the mind shifts from resentment to gratitude, from comparison to freedom, from bitterness to hope. One practice I recommend to people with liver issues is this: find one reason to be grateful each day, even on the hardest days. You do not need to find something big, only something true. A ray of sunlight, a simple meal, a kind message, a moment of stillness, a breath without pain, a gesture you received, one small thing you did well. This is not blind optimism. It is bringing life back to the places bitterness once occupied. The liver always responds to gratitude. The mind always lightens when it finds a reason to give thanks. And the body always returns to order when the mind is freed from heaviness. Now, before you move on, I want to ask you something as an invitation to your own heart. Today, what within you needs to be released so that your liver may be light again? Are you willing to place down one small piece of bitterness so that God can do the rest? Thank you for your gentle presence in this moment. WHENLIFELOSESIT SSWEETNESSTHEBODYSPE There is something I have observed through many years of working with people. The body has never complained in the wrong place. It does not speak in words, but it speaks in sensations and signals, in the small shifts we often ignore. And one of the most delicate signs is how the body responds to the sweetness of your inner life. When the soul dries out of joy, when the inner world lacks warmth, when life becomes a long chain of duties, without meaning, the body often chooses the pancreas and the sugar-regulating system to speak on its behalf. I have met many people who believed their struggles were entirely physical: blood sugar imbalance, fatigue after meals, trembling, or symptoms they could not name. But when we sat together in honest listening, one thing became clear. They had lived too long without sweetness in the soul. Not a lack of sugar, but a lack of moments where they felt truly alive, truly loved, truly rested. You may eat well, you may care for your body carefully, but if your mind is tense, if your heart doubts its own worth, if you live under heavy expectations instead of gratitude and freedom, the body reacts as if it is missing something essential: simple joy. I have often said this: the sugar in the blood is only an image of the sweetness in the soul, and I believe it as deeply as I believe in my breath. I remember a man who came to me looking exhausted. He said his blood sugar rose and fell unpredictably, though he followed every instruction. But when I asked him a simple question, "Do you still feel this life is sweet?" he fell silent for a long time. Then he admitted he had lived so many years trying to meet everyone else's expectations that he no longer knew what truly brought him joy. His body was simply reflecting that absence. The pancreas is incredibly sensitive. It reacts to emotion even before you are aware of it. Prolonged anxiety, dark predictions, a sense of not enough, or a sadness without a name, all of these disturb the natural rhythm of the body. When you live in constant worry, the body assumes you are unsafe, and your internal systems begin to fall out of balance. But when you reconnect with the sweetness of gratitude, of simplicity, of unconditional love, even a little, the body changes direction. I want you to know that I am not speaking of loud temporary joy. I am speaking of a quiet sweetness with deep healing power. The feeling that you belong in your own life. The feeling of enough even when things are not perfect. The feeling of being supported rather than carrying everything alone. The feeling of your laughter returning like an old friend. To touch this, you do not need big conditions. You only need to stop allowing worry to rule you. And the first step is a denial. I do not give power to anxiety to rule the life in me. When you speak this denial, it is like lifting a stone from your chest. Anxiety survives only when you grant it residence. When you withdraw that permission, it weakens, steps back, and light finds space to enter. After denial, you need an affirmation. The sweetness of God brings balance to the life within me. When I guide people to practice this affirmation, I often invite them to close their eyes for a moment. I tell them to imagine a warm light, soft and gentle, without pressure or expectation, flowing through their body like a clear golden honey. Not the sweetness that overstimulates, but the sweetness of peace. And I see their eyes soften, their breath slow, their shoulders drop, as if what they have lacked all along was one tender moment for themselves. Once I asked a woman, "When was the last time you were truly happy?" She looked into the distance and said, "I do not remember." And I knew immediately that what her body needed was not a new diet, but the return of the joy of being alive. When joy fades, the body signals. When joy rises again, the body recovers. Joy, like faith, is not an emotion from outside. It is a choice from within. It is the decision to no longer cling to harsh judgments, to impossible standards, to memories that make you doubt yourself. I want you to understand that you are worthy of sweetness, even if life has dried you out before. You are worthy of joy without condition. You are worthy of living in gentle light. Try this. Each time you feel tired, instead of asking, "What did I do wrong?" ask, "How long have I forgotten to care for my joy?" Perhaps it has been a long time, but that is all right. Joy does not need an apology. It only needs an invitation to return. And when joy returns, even as the thinnest ray of light, your body will know. Your pancreas will know. Your blood sugar will know. Your fatigue will know. For the body always follows the soul. THESENSANDTHEVOIC. WHATYOUSEWHTYUA USEPAKYURLIFEBIECOMESTHAT. There is something I have always believed. People do not live according to circumstances, they live according to how they see their circumstances. And the way they see, the way they hear, the way they speak, all begin in a very deep layer of the mind. The eyes, the ears, and the voice may seem like simple functions of the body, but in truth they are the most powerful spiritual channels you use every hour and every day. You do not see only with your eyes, you see with your thought. You do not hear only with your ears, you hear with your belief. You do not speak only with your mouth, you speak with the energy of your heart. And because of this, the senses always reflect the clarity of the inner world. They cannot hide anything from you. I remember a woman who came to me in discouragement. She said that lately she could not see anything good, that everything appeared negative to her. When we spoke longer, I discovered she had lived many months in spiritual exhaustion, and the wounds that had piled up made her wear an invisible pair of glasses, the glasses of fear. The world had not changed, but her perspective had darkened. Others have told me they could no longer hear anything positive. But the truth was not a lack of hearing. They simply no longer had the belief to receive the sound of hope. A mind accustomed to criticism struggles to hear love. A heart accustomed to fear forgets how to recognize the voice of peace. The voice works the same way. Some speak much, but not from their truth. Some speak softly, yet carry bitterness. Some speak strongly, but their voice trembles. Your voice always reveals what the mind tries to hide. It reflects where your spiritual center is resting. That is why Scripture says the mouth speaks what the heart is full of. Never wrong, never off. To heal the senses and the voice, you do not need to change the organs. You need to change the source. Denial, the first step to freeing the senses. I often invite my students to begin with a simple denial. I do not give power to fearful images and complaining words in my life. This denial is like closing a door that has been opened too long to false voices, the voices of the past, the voices of others, the voices of fear. When you stop allowing these to shape how you see life, your senses begin to shift. You will notice the eyes search less for flaws. The ears wait less for bad news. The mouth speaks fewer words that drain the soul. Denial is not rejecting reality. It is refusing to look at life through a distorted lens. Affirmation, reopening the door for light to enter after denial. You need an affirmation stronger than the shadow that held you. I see what is good. I hear what is true. I speak with grace. These 3 short sentences have the power to restore spiritual order. They adjust the inner compass. The eyes turn toward what is bright. The ears turn toward what is true. The voice turns toward love. Someone once asked me, what if I cannot see anything good? I answered, begin with intention. Intention is the seed, perception is the harvest. You only need to plant the seed, the upper stream will take care of the rest. Blessing what softens the soul and heals the voice, one of the deepest forms of healing, lies right in your mouth, the act of blessing. When you bless a person, a situation, or even yourself, you open a beam of light into places where darkness once lived. Your eyes become clearer. Your ears become more discerning. Your voice becomes softer. I once watched a man whose voice always trembled when he spoke in public. But when he began blessing his own voice each morning with simple words, like this voice is an instrument of peace, he spoke differently. Not louder, not stronger, but truer. And that is the voice people want to listen to. The senses, the small mirrors of the soul. Observe yourself. When you are sad, colors dull. When you are worried, sounds become sharp. When you are wounded, your words turn defensive. When you lose faith, everything you hear becomes suspicion. But when you return to the sacred truth within you, the senses grow refined, not by effort, but by inner stillness. Just as a lake reflects the sky, only when it is calm, the senses reflect truth, only when the soul is at rest. The voice where your inner light becomes heard, your voice is the instrument of God within you. It was created to heal, to comfort, to uplift. But when the mind clings to fear, the voice becomes a channel of what is not true. Try this. Before saying anything important, pause for 1 second and ask, is this word coming from peace or from fear? 1 second is enough to change the entire conversation. A voice from peace always heals. A voice from fear always wounds. When the senses are restored, life changes color. You will begin to see the good that was always present but unnoticed, the gentle sounds that always existed but went unheard, the loving words that once felt lost, now returning in the way you speak to others and to yourself. Healing the senses does not erase your circumstances, but it allows you to see truth instead of the illusions of fear. REPRODUCTIVELEAE. The reproductive life is not merely a function of the body. It is a very honest reflection of how you feel about yourself. It reflects the degree to which you respect yourself, the degree to which you allow life to flow through you, the degree to which you believe you are worthy of love, connection, and the pure joy that life carries. For many, this area becomes the place where the most hidden things are stored: unspoken shame, unacknowledged fears, wounds carried in silence. And the body, with its absolute honesty, listens to all of it. It does not judge, it does not blame. It simply responds. I have met people who thought their challenges were purely hormonal or due to age or physical condition. But when we entered a gentler conversation, I often discovered the source was this. They had stopped treating their body as a sacred part of themselves. Many were raised in environments that taught them to see their body as something shameful or their emotions as something to suppress. Some lived in relationships where they had to shrink in order to fit. Some lived in fear of being judged. Some carried painful memories around intimacy that they had never truly processed. All of these create a contraction in the soul, and the body simply mirrors that contraction through small or large disturbances in the reproductive life. The first thing I always invite them to practice is a gentle but powerful denial. I do not give power to guilt or shame to rule my body. No one was created to carry guilt about their own body. No one was born to feel ashamed of the natural needs of the soul and the flesh. Guilt and shame do not come from heaven. They are the products of distorted messages, misunderstandings, and fears passed down through words and glances. When you deny guilt and shame, you are not rebelling. You are returning to your rightful place. After denial, I often guide people into an affirmation, a sentence like a stream of water, soothing every place that had lived in tension. The divine life blesses my body and sets every function in perfect order. When you speak this affirmation, you are not forcing your body to work your way. You are returning the authority to heaven, where order is always present and chaos cannot remain. You are inviting gentleness, balance, and trust into the places that once lived in fear or strain. I remember a woman who told me every menstrual cycle felt like a battle. Not only pain, but a feeling of being betrayed by her own body. But when I asked her a simple question, how long has it been since you spoke kindly to your body, she cried. Not because the question was deep, but because she realized she had treated her body like an enemy for years. And the body, like all living things, needs only one thing to be loved. When she began speaking gently to her body, not to control it, but to make peace with it, her cycle gradually returned to balance. Not a miracle, simply the sacred order finding its way home. There were couples who came to me longing for a child, but sometimes I sensed in them more pressure than love. They carried expectations, fear of failure, and unconsciously treated fertility as a test of their worth. In such an atmosphere, the body cannot open. It contracts in fear. It closes under pressure. I often told them this. No one creates life through tension. Life flows only into places opened by love. And when they released those heavy expectations, when they learned to be together with more gentleness and kindness, everything changed. Sometimes the result came quickly. Sometimes the result had not come yet, but their hearts opened, and that itself was a deep healing. For men facing worries about ability or age, I always want them to know this. You are not measured by physical strength or reproductive performance. You are measured by the clarity of your soul and the integrity of your heart. The body does not weaken from age before it weakens from fear. But when a man learns to honor himself, to release the pressure to always be strong, always right, always the solid one, his body softens. Confidence returns. Vitality returns. Not because he tries harder, but because he stops fearing. Reproductive life, for both men and women, needs the same thing. Space to breathe, to unfold, to no longer be ashamed of oneself. And nothing frees reproductive energy more quickly than gentleness toward yourself and toward the one you love. I want you to understand this deeply. The body does not ask you to be perfect. It only asks you to be kind to it. And when you do, every part of you, including the parts you once worried about, will find its way back to its rightful order. Skinheageau. The skin is the place where the soul steps into the world first. When you are angry, the skin reacts. When you are afraid, the skin reacts. When you feel shame, the skin reacts. When you love yourself, the skin reacts. The skin is not only the border between you and the outer world. It is the most delicate mirror reflecting the way you face yourself. I often say this: the skin is the garment of the soul, and that garment always reveals the truth even when you try to hide behind words or behavior. I have met many people who told me they had skin problems, redness, dryness, inflammation, itching, acne, with no clear cause. But when I sat with them longer, something familiar always appeared. They did not truly have a skin problem. They had a problem with how they saw themselves. The skin only speaks what they held in silence. Skin and contact, how close you allow the world to come. The skin is the first place of contact. But it is also the first place of defense. Some live with the fear that they are not safe around others. Their skin is tight, easily irritated, easily flushed, easily hurt. Not because they are weak, but because they never feel there is a place where they can relax. The skin is only doing its job, creating distance when the mind is too tired to be close. Some are afraid of being seen. They speak little, avoid interaction, or try to appear strong. But their skin, especially on the face, speaks first: acne, dullness, tension. The skin knows the truth. They are not resisting the world. They are resisting the feeling of not being good enough. Skin and shame, the emotion never spoken, yet always visible. No emotion touches the skin as quickly as shame. Old shame about the body, about words once spoken, about the past, about what happened that you have not forgiven yourself for. Shame makes the skin contract. Shame makes the skin lose its light. Shame makes the skin overreact to the smallest things. It is not your skin that is sensitive. It is your heart that is sensitive and the skin simply reflects it. That is why I always invite people to begin with this denial. I do not give power to shame or self-judgment in my life. You are not denying the emotion. You are refusing to let it become the lens through which you see yourself. Skin and defense, when you believe you must tense up to survive many skin disturbances, do not come from the outside, but from inner defense. When you live too long in the posture of having to be strong, the skin hardens, dries, and loses vibrancy. When you believe someone can hurt you, the skin reacts as a guard. When you believe the world must be handled, the skin builds a barrier. When you believe you must always be perfect, the skin responds to every small flaw. The skin is only protecting you from what you believe is dangerous. Wrong belief, wrong reaction. Right belief, the skin changes. Healing affirmation, calling back the sacred beauty already within there, is no affirmation I love more for this part than this one. I am covered by the beauty and purity of God. This beauty is not the beauty of worldly standards, not the perfection of appearance, not flawless smoothness. Sacred beauty is the inner light that makes the skin softer, warmer, brighter, because the mind has opened the door to love instead of fear. When you speak this affirmation each day, you are not asking for a miracle. You are bringing your mind back to the truth. You are already beautiful in the eyes of heaven, and the skin simply reflects it when you believe it. Blessing the skin, making peace with your own reflection. I remember a young woman who cried because she felt she could not look at herself in the mirror. She thought her skin was the problem, but what she could not bear was her own judging gaze. I invited her to place her hand on her cheek and whisper, "I bless this place. I bless the beauty that is healing in me." She was surprised that within weeks her skin improved and her expression softened. When she no longer feared herself, the world stopped feeling threatening. Blessing the skin is powerful because it dissolves the fear of being seen. When you bless yourself, you step out of the darkness of self-criticism and into the light of acceptance. Skin the last veil between you and the truth of who you are. I want you to see this truth. The skin never betrays you. It only reflects what you have not yet dared to face. And the miracle is this. When you face it without judgment, the skin changes before you even notice. No cream is stronger than forgiveness. No medicine is brighter than joy. No treatment soothes the skin like kindness toward yourself. The skin is proof of this. When the inner world is free, the outer appearance naturally becomes beautiful. Now let me ask you a question for you alone. Today, how have you looked at your skin, with judgment or with love? And are you willing to change that gaze from this moment on? Thank you for listening to yourself in this moment. BONESMUSCLASA NDJOINTSWHENS TREANGTHANDGE INNSSRETAUNE TOGEAEOU THAAA. There is no part of the body that speaks more honestly about your inner life than the bones, the muscles, and they are the ones that bear the full weight of living. Not only the physical weight, but also the invisible one: expectations, responsibilities, the things you carry for others, the things you hold so no one will be disappointed in you. Bones show the truth of what you are standing on. Muscles show the direction your actions are moving toward. Joints show how willing you are to change, release, and adapt. And strangely yet accurately, when the soul becomes rigid, the joints become rigid. When the heart grows tired, the muscles tire. When the mind carries too much, the bones ache. I once met a man everyone saw as the pillar of his family. He worked hard, never complained, never allowed himself to be weak. But the body did not hide the truth. He lived with chronic back pain so severe that even bending down was difficult. When we talked, I asked him, "Are you carrying things that are not yours to carry?" He stayed silent for a long time. Then he said what I have heard from many others. No one else can do it, so I have to. And that was the invisible weight his body was straining under. Bones, the symbol of the truth you live by. Bones are not only a physical frame. They reflect the deepest belief you hold about life. If you live in fear of breaking, the bones become fragile. If you live believing you must be hard at all costs, the bones tense to exhaustion. If you lack inner support, the bones feel it first. When someone says their bones ache during stressful days, it is not random. It is the body saying you are resisting yourself. Bones do not need you to become harshly strong. They need gentle stability, something you only have when your mind stands on peace rather than anxiety. Muscles, the reflection of the burden you carry. Muscles carry strength, but they also carry memories. A person who holds the worries of the family often carries tightness in the shoulders. A person who suppresses emotions often holds tension in the neck. A person who avoids truth or confrontation often carries tension in the jaw. A person who tries too hard to please everyone often carries heaviness in the lower back. Muscles do not lie. They retell the story you have not dared to speak. I once helped a woman who had severe neck tension for years. No medicine worked for long, but when she shared that, she always tried to keep everything in her home peaceful and never admitted her exhaustion. I understood immediately. Her neck had stiffened because she had been the support for everyone for too long. When she learned to speak, her needs gently, her body released like a long-held sigh, finally let go. Joints, the measure of how much the soul allows life to move. Joints are the clearest symbol of flexibility in the mind. When you cling to old beliefs, joints ache. When you fear change, joints inflame. When you hold long-standing anger, joints stiffen and heat up. When you forgive, joints soften. When you release burdens not meant for you, your steps become lighter. Joints always tell the truth about how open your heart is. A person living in prolonged disappointment often faces issues in the knees because knees symbolize readiness to move forward. When the spirit is exhausted, the knees resist. Denial, releasing what makes the body heavy. I often begin with a simple yet powerful denial. I do not give power to rigidity, anger, or invisible burdens to rule my body. This denial loosens the entire system of bones, muscles, and joints. When the mind is no longer tight, the body is free to soften. Affirmation, calling the body back to its rightful order. After denial, an affirmation is needed to invite life back. The order of God strengthens my bones, and His love softens my joints. Nothing strengthens bones like spiritual truth. Nothing softens joints like kindness. Nothing unburdens muscles like letting go of what was never yours to carry. You do not need to force yourself to stand firm. Truth will hold you. You do not need to force your heart to soften. Love will do it. You do not need to try to relax. You only need to stop resisting yourself. When forgiveness enters the marrow, I have seen long-standing pain disappear, not because of medicine, but because of forgiveness. Not forgiveness to excuse others, but forgiveness so you no longer carry the past in your body. Forgiveness softens joints. Forgiveness lightens the back. Forgiveness eases the bones. Forgiveness is not one grand act. It is a small, repeated gesture. That has passed. I choose peace. When letting go becomes medicine for the body, some pain does not come from injury, but from carrying what is not yours. Duties, roles, emotional loads, long silences, self-blame carried too long. Letting go is not abandoning responsibility. Letting go is abandoning the illusion that you must do everything alone. The body always relaxes when you remember that you are not the one holding up the world. You are only a part of it. And now let me ask you something gentle yet deep. Is there something in your life you have been holding up even though you know you are tired? And are you willing to set down even a small part of that burden today? Thank you for listening to your body and your soul in this moment. T E E E U R N W H E. Effort, though important, is still not enough to bring true peace. You change habits, change lifestyle, change how you treat your body, yet something inside still longs to be touched. Something that does not come from action, but from a quiet return. Many believe meaning is something to be found, that it lies in an achievement, a goal, a role in life. But I have seen many people reach everything they once desired and still feel empty. Not because they lack something, but because meaning was never placed outside the self. Meaning is not a destination. Meaning is a state of consciousness. It is born when you stop running and begin to listen. It appears when you dare to look at yourself without judgment. It expands when you accept that what you have been searching for outside can only awaken from within. Exhaustion does not come from doing much, but from doing what does not belong to you. I have sat with many people in their exhaustion so tired that they felt as though even their soul had grown heavy. But when we went deeper into their stories, the truth became clear. They were not tired from doing too much. They were tired from doing things they did not believe in or never believed in at all. Some lived their whole lives to please others. Some lived running from fear instead of moving toward what they loved. Some lived because they had to, not because they were allowed to. When you live away from yourself, misaligned with the quiet voice inside, the body signals. The mind signals. Life signals. Not to punish you, but to call you back. The return begins with a very small truth. You have forgotten yourself. This truth does not accuse you. It simply opens a door. I have seen people change the moment they admitted this, when they whispered to themselves, "I have forgotten me for too long." In that admission, there is love. When you realize you have drifted from yourself, you open the door to come closer again. True healing is not fixing yourself true. Healing is remembering yourself. You were not born to become a perfect version of society. You were born to become yourself whole, complete, and with a purpose that is yours alone. But the busyness of life blurs that truth. Expectations blur that truth. Old wounds blur that truth. And one day you feel lost. Not because you walked the wrong way, but because you forgot the inner voice that once guided you. When we find that voice again, we do not change ourselves. We return to ourselves. Peace does not come when everything is calm. Peace comes when within you is calm enough to receive everything a busy mind wants to control. A tired mind wants to escape, but a peaceful mind wants only one thing: presence. When you are present, truly present, you realize life never abandoned you. You simply had not paused long enough to see its hand already extended toward you. Peace is not the absence of problems, but the ability to stand in the middle of them without losing yourself. Faith is a support, not a burden. I meet many people who think faith must be strong, large, unshakable, like a stone. But faith is not a stone. Faith is like a breath. It does not need to be big. It only needs to be true and steady. One honest breath can save you from an entire day of chaos. One small spark of hope can open a door you thought was closed forever. Faith is not something you must strain to hold. Faith is what lifts you when you have no strength left to hold anything. Hope is not seeing the light. Hope is trusting the light is there. Even when you do not see it, there are days you cannot see the path. There are seasons when you feel you are walking backward. There are moments when you feel you have fallen into a vast darkness. But even in that darkness, life whispers just one more step. And that one step, one breath, one small moment of holding on to faith is enough to pull you out of the depths. Hope is not loud. Hope does not demand. Hope needs only a small opening to enter, and when it enters, darkness cannot remain. Meaning is not something you create. Meaning is something you recognize. You do not need to build a great legacy. You do not need to become extraordinary. You only need to return to what makes your soul come alive. Meaning shows itself through simple things. The kindness you offer, the truth. You remain faithful to the peace you bring into the places you walk, through the light you do not force yet naturally radiate when you live aligned with yourself. Meaning does not come from applause. Meaning comes from the quiet knowing that you have lived true to the sacred part of you. And then in that return you realize what you have searched for all your life has been with you all along, not in others, not in work, not in success, but in the quiet voice within you, the voice that has waited for your return for so long, the voice that speaks with gentleness, with peace, with the love of God, living in every breath you take. When you hear that voice again, all confusion disappears. Not because life becomes easier, but because you have become the one who can guide yourself. THEFINALWORD THETHETHERETHIOURNSFROMWITHIN. When I look back at the entire journey you and I have walked together, I see something more important than anything else. Healing does not come from what you try to change. It comes from what you dare to return to. I have met countless people searching for answers everywhere, but only when they turn inward do they hear the gentle voice God placed in them from the beginning. In every chapter of life, every breath, every moment of awakening, I see clearly one truth. Within each person there is always a guiding voice. Not loud, not demanding, not frightening. A voice as soft as water, steady like light, and strong enough to lead you out of any night. I call it the power of the voice within. I want you to know this. This journey never required you to become someone else. It only invited you to lay down the layers of dust that covered your true light. The dust of anxiety, the dust of resentment, the dust of old fears, the dust of burdens you carried too long because you believed you had to be stronger than necessary. And when those layers fall away, what remains is not emptiness, but the radiant essence God placed inside you. I have seen many lives change through one small shift. They began treating themselves with kindness. They began speaking more gently to themselves. They began believing they were not abandoned, not forgotten, and never alone on this path. And through that simple shift, their bodies softened, their minds brightened, and their lives found new order. If there is one last thing I want to give you before this journey closes, it is this. Peace is not something you must search for. Peace is something that has always been waiting for you to receive it. It is in your breath, in the quiet place in your chest, in the way you soften when you remember you are loved by a love that never changes. I promise you this. Whenever you feel lost, simply stop and listen. That voice, the voice of truth, of peace, of God within you, will always know the way back. And when you return, you will know that everything you have been searching for has been within you from the beginning.